Now, yesterday, I expounded upon some of the changes that are coming in the 2020 class in regards to SAT testing and different things that are going to be waived for the in order for you to be admitted into college. So now 2021, 22, 23, nothing is going to change in the foreseeable future. So you guys need to be on your P's and Q's the same way. It's business as usual. So the important things to make you more of a recruitable athlete or a recruitable athlete in general is pinned below: production and academics. Now, production, you need to produce. You need to your stats need to be right. You can't reach out to these schools and you got 100 all-purpose yards and no interceptions on defense, and you think you're about to just talk your way into a scholarship. You're about to say, well, coach didn't play me because of this, coach didn't play me because of that, and that's why I'm not. That's why I don't have the stats. That's why I don't have the production. None of that matters. It's all about what you can show, what your film can show. So if you're producing on the field, a lot of time, these guys that are getting recruited at a high level are producing at a high level. You have to look around your area, look around your state, and see what these guys that are top recruits are doing. Now, just because you're not a top recruit, that doesn't mean you're not recruitable. That doesn't mean that a school isn't going to come knocking. That doesn't mean that your opportunity isn't, out there. But if you're producing and if your grades are right, those are things you can control. Those are things that make being recruitable that much easier and that much more attainable. So production comes in various forms, right? So running backs, rushing yards, touchdowns, all-purpose yards, things like that. Like, you need to be in close to 1,000 or more than 1,000. Some of these running backs that are getting recruited, 2,000-yard seasons, crazy numbers. Games where they had 400 yards rushing, 300 yards rushing. I'm not saying that's what you have to do in order to be recruited, but at the end of the season, they need to look at your total accumulation of stats and be like, all right, this guy, he produced this year. If you only had 800 yards, rushing, you better had 500 yards receiving. You better crack that 1,000-yard threshold somehow if you're in the backfield. Quarterbacks, look around the area, look around the state. Some of these quarterbacks is throwing 4,000 yards, 3,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, 40 touchdowns. Some of these duels is throwing for 30, running for 20. So you need to make sure that you are producing on the field. That way, you're making a name for yourself just off your production alone. When you go out there on the field, every day you are on the field, every Friday night, every Saturday morning, it's an audition. You're auditioning every day. Every day you're auditioning. So you need to make sure that you're bringing your A game every time you step on the field. But that doesn't just start on the field. It starts on the practice field. It starts in the springtime in the weight room. It starts after the season in the weight room. It starts when you're conditioning. It starts before the season. That's why a lot of kids break down towards the end of the season, because they didn't properly condition themselves, in the spring. They didn't hit the weights, or they didn't run track, or they didn't do things that will make them more equipped to last the long season. I know a lot of times high school season's only 10 games, but 10 games isn't a short season. The game is physical. The game is, it's not what they say, it's not a contact sport, it's a collision sport. So you need to properly prepare yourself to be a football player. You need to hit them weights like you're a football player. Don't just go in there and lollygag around, do 3 sets of 8 and think that you've done it. No, you need to equip yourself to be a football player. You need to condition yourself off the field. Before you even step on the field, you need to be preparing yourself to be a football player. You need to hit those weights. You need to focus on your PRs in the weight room. You need to increase the weight. You need to have a program. If your school doesn't have a particular weight room, most schools have a program, but it is important to lift weights with your team. I don't know how many times I need to stress that. It's all right to have a trainer on the side. It's all right to, because sometimes trainers can improve certain things that, your coach may not. But don't skip the weight room in the school and then go work out with a trainer. That's not what you do. If anything, do both. But you need to lift weights. You need to condition yourself. It's a process from January, to August. You need to be conditioning yourself. When two-a-days start, weight room's still open. You need to be lifting. You need to be getting right, so that when the season starts, you can perform at a higher level than your competition, at a higher level than your opponent on a week-to-week basis. So those are the things that can help increase your production. Like I said, I got speed workouts, physique fitness in here. I'm tag him. He's strength and conditioning. You need to make sure that you improve those things in the off season, because during the season it's about maintaining. You could get stronger during the season. I've seen it done. You can lift during the season. It's not going to hurt you. We lift after games. We lift the next day, to help take out the soreness and things of that nature. So your production is highly indicative of your off-season workout regimen. You can tell, especially me as a coach, I can tell if somebody's been working out. And that's in any sport, not even just football. It's basketball, track. You can tell if somebody has waited until August practices start to try to get in shape. You can tell. And a lot of times those kids don't produce like they should, or they're not in the shape that they should be. So production is key. Production is key. You can't preach that enough. You can be 6'4", 6'5", 215 pounds, but if you only got 150 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns, they're gonna be like, "What's wrong with him? What's wrong with this kid?" If you're on defense and you got those same stats and you're at defensive end, but you ain't got no sacks, they run into your side because you're not really a threat. They call that look like Tarzan but play like Jane. You don't want to be that guy. So you need to make sure you're constantly improving yourself in the weight room, on the practice field, film study, things like that. When you're watching film, watch your opponent. Don't just look at the film and watch the game. No, watch your opponent. If you're playing receiver, watch the corners. See what they do. Look at their tendencies. Look at, how they move in and out of their breaks, how they line up, if they're fast or not, if you think you can run with them, if you can challenge them in in run blocking. If at a receiver, I tell my receivers all the time, beat them up during the run game. When we're running the ball, beat them up. Beat up the DBs. If you're a DB, look at the receivers you're covering. Watch them. I've seen people watch film and they just watching the game. Look at this kid. Look at that. No, look at the kid that's going to be in front of you, because that's the kid that's going to determine how productive you're going to be that day. So you need to watch your opponent. Don't just watch the game when you're watching film. Watch your opponent. Study your opponent. If you're on the line, O-line, watch the D lineman. Watch the lineman that you're going to be blocking. Talk to your center. Talk to your guards, your tackles. Talk to your tight ends. Talk about how the blocking scheme is going to go. If you got an ace block, deuce block, tray block, make sure you guys are on the same page, because linemen, it matters. Like, it's not just about size with the linemen. Some of these big guys, don't know how to move well, get in and out of their stance and things like that. So how you produce on the film is a key, and if you're recruitable or not. Now, I say production first because I feel like production gets the coaches to the door. Academics gives them the key to get inside. So all these things add up for you, right? You're playing running back, you run for 1,100, 1,200 yards, 10, 15 touchdowns in. You're on a competitive schedule. So that's another thing. The lower competition you're playing against, the higher your production needs to be. So if your schedule is weak, quote unquote, in regards to other schedules other teams in your group are playing, you need to make sure your production is that much better. If you're playing a low Group 1 schedule and you only have 500 yards rushing, that's a lot different than somebody that's playing a Group 5 schedule and they have 500 yards rushing. Those things weigh differently. So you have to make sure that you're producing above your level. If you're at a low Group 1, low Group 2, that's how you see some of these guys, Group 1, go to Division 1 schools because they're producing at such a high level. They can't be ignored. They're putting up 2,000-yard seasons, 1,900-yard seasons, breaking South Jersey rushing records and stuff like that. Then you don't just get the Wisconsin running for 500 yards. That doesn't happen. So you have to keep that in mind as well. The smaller the pond, the bigger the fish you have to be. And the bigger the pond, the bigger the ocean, you got to be a shark. Just because you play in Group 5, that don't mean you could go out there and run for 200 yards on the season and think that you're about to be recruited. It don't work like that. Now, I know sometimes systems come into play. Some schools still run a wing T, and some backs aren't as productive as they think they would have been. But I seen backs in the wing T run for 1,500 yards and run for, crazy numbers. I played against some backs that were in wing T systems and ran for 1,500 yards, 2,000 yards. So you can't always use the scheme and the coaches as an excuse for why you weren't productive. You control your production. Your coaches see you in the off season. They see if you're working. They will give you a shot. They will put the ball in your hands. They will put you on the field if they see you putting in the work in the off season. I promise you that. Now, if you're a kid that's giving the bare minimum, you're barely showing up to the weight room, you're not participating in other activities, you're not getting stronger, you're not getting faster, you're not working hard, then that's when opportunities start to dwindle a little bit. Because it's hard as a coach to see kids outworking the next guy and to still give that next guy the opportunity. It's hard. It's hard to see a kid that just thinks he's just going to show up and play when another guy's been busting his behind since January. That's very difficult. So you need to keep that in mind. Right now we're in May. Right? We're at the beginning of May. Kids have been out of school since March. What have you been doing the last 2 months? You got all day. I've heard kids tell me all the time, Dad, Coach, I wish I had all day to just work out. And have you been working out all day? Have you been balancing your Google Classroom and your workout sessions properly? There's still ways to work out. I know parks have been closed, but you could get workouts in your backyard. You can run in your neighborhood. You can run a mile. Y'all all got iPhones. Y'all all got phones that can track your running. What's up, Nas? What's going on? We need to talk too. So yeah, make sure you're using this time as an advantage. You should not leave this quarantine in worse shape than you were when you started this quarantine. You should be in better shape. You should step out of the house looking like Batman when he put the suit on. Like, they should be like, yo, like, what you been in the house doing? Like, you been getting right? Like, it's still ways for you to stay in shape. There's still ways for you to get stronger. If you don't have a gym at home, that's fine. You should be knocking out push-ups. I know some of y'all been seeing my push-up challenges on Twitter. Make sure you're knocking out those push-ups, man. Make sure you're getting your core stronger and things of that nature. Because some of you underclassmen, if the season happens, you need to be prepared. You need to be prepared to go bang in September. So losing 2 months in a weight room is huge. That's 8 weeks. So you need to make sure you're taking care of yourself at home, that you're eating properly, you're sleeping properly, you're not staying up all night playing 2K. You're not doing things that you normally wouldn't do. Because you can, now with school being out, you can maximize the amount of time you can actually work out. So if you were waking up at 6 in the morning for school, now you could wake up at 6 in the morning and work out for an hour and a half and be done at 7:30. And work out for an hour and a half and be done at 7:30. You can wake up. This is a good regimen. Wake up, get breakfast, right? Get a something nice, a little banana, something like that. Work out. Boom, 7:30, get a real breakfast in. Chill, relax. 12 noon, you could go outside and get a run in, run a mile, or get some sprints in, right? Chill. And then later on that evening, if you can't get to a weight room or anything like that, boom, hit the calisthenics. Knock out 150, 200 push-ups, 300 push-ups within an hour and a half span. Knock out your sit-ups, knock out your crunches, your dips, things like that. These are things you can implement every day to make sure that you're not only maintaining during this quarantine, but improving during this quarantine. So when coach give you that call in June or July, like, we back, you want to come in like, all right, let's go. So academics. Now, academics are, like I mentioned yesterday with academics, with SAT testing, there's going to be differences this year for the 2020 class than it will be for any other class, with them waiving SAT scores and allowing students to be admitted as long as they reach the GPA requirement, which is at D1 FCS level 2.5, and at D2 level, I think it was 2.3. So you need to make sure that you're not using, so 2020 class can use this to an advantage, but 2021 will not be able to. So all of that is just noise right now. You need to make sure that you finish this academic calendar strong. Make sure you're knocking out your work on your Google Classroom. The I always feel like they say 2.5, but I feel like kids have a 3.0. That gives them a better chance, because now it's something, is one less thing you have to worry about. So you have to make sure your grades are on point. I know that the requirement is 2.5, but don't just go for the bare minimum, because anything could happen. You could get sick and miss some days, and then bang, now you're floating. So try to get 3.0, 3.5, 4.0. Be it, because you're a student athlete, right? You're a student first. When you're in college, so I think I made the post already. The Kentuckiana Football Alliance is doing a seminar on student athletes, and they're going to have collegiate athletes come in and talk about the day in life of a student athlete in college. You're a student first. You're going to school first. When you're in college, you're a student first. So your grades need to be up to par. It's kind of difficult to be a terrible high school student and then think you're about to go on to college and be a great college student. So you need to start implementing certain strategies now. Implementing certain strategies now to make you more equipped for the academic strains that comes in college. Because although in college you get a lot more free time, you also get a lot more work. And everything is scheduled when you're a collegiate athlete. Study hall times, practice times is a regimen every day. So you need to make sure that you're mentally prepared to take on that task. So in a situation now, like in this quarantine, if you're waiting to the last minute to knock out your assignments, if your assignments are due once a week or once every day and you're barely making them, and you got incompletions and stuff like that, that's something you need to think about right now. Because somebody's not going to always be there to hold your hand and make sure you're doing your schoolwork, or to make sure that you're being academically responsible. I've talked to so many coaches over this past winter and springtime about certain kids, and the first thing they ask me every time is, what's their GPA? What's their GPA? Are they a qualifier? Are they an academic qualifier? I send the film. I'll tell them their stats. If the kid fails to give me their GPA, I know they're hiding something. So I ask them, what's your GPA? What's your SAT? Like I said, things have changed now with the SAT for this year, but those are the first things that they look at. They want to make sure that you're an academic qualifier. So that's something that you can control directly as a student to make sure that you're a recruitable athlete. Your academics. That should be a no-brainer. That should be something that they don't even have to worry about. Like, all right, his grades is good, his production is good. Let's see. Academics also go, I should have said school in general, because your academics could be right, your production could be right, but you could be a troublemaker in school. Or you can, have some issues, off the field, some discipline issues and stuff like that. So you need to make sure none of that is a question. When I talk to these schools, sometimes they ask me, like, if I give them a kid and their grades are right, their production is right, the next question, if they're not being recruited, is what's wrong with them? Do he have any off the field issues? Does he have any felonies or misdemeanors, anything like that? Is he troublemaker in the classroom? Because we all hear about it. Some schools just give these kids a grade that they may not. That they may have not necessarily earned, right? We hate to think about it, but it does happen sometimes. So you need to make sure that those two things are checked. Your production is good. Your academics are good. Your off the field conduct is good. No behavior issues and things like that. Those are things that you can control as a student athlete to make sure that you're making yourself more recruitable. because the first thing they talk to is they talk to your coaches, and your coaches got to be honest with them, because if they lie and then you go up there and they're totally different, you're a totally different kid than they describe, that messes up the relationship between your coach and that university. So if they're telling like, oh yeah, he's a great kid, he's in no trouble, he does all his work, he always shows up on time and all this stuff, and then you get up to college and you're the exact opposite, they're gonna be like, all right, well, we know we can't go to coach for this. We know we can't go see Coach Diggs about this kid no more, because he doesn't keep it real with us. He's not honest with us. So those are things that you have to take into account. So they're going to talk to your coach, and you might get mad at your coach for being honest, but at the end of the day, you got to be honest with yourself. If you don't come to practice, or you come to practice with a bad attitude, you didn't go to the weight room when you should have. You should have you don't go to the weight room when you should have. You don't participate in off-season strength and conditioning. You during the season you get in trouble. During the season they got to check up on you academically. They getting emails from your teachers about you failing and things like that. You got to look at all of those things at the end of the day and ask yourself if you're making it easier for yourself to be a recruitable athlete. That's what you got to look at, because all of those things come into play when your coach is asked by university, what about this kid? How's he? They have to tell them the truth. So those are things to think about going forward. Like I said, it's sad what's happening to the 2020 class, but safety is the first priority. 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, you guys control your destiny at this point. And it's up to you to make sure you're being a recruitable athlete. And it's up to you to make sure you're being a responsible student. All right? It's Coach Diggs. I'll be back tomorrow at 6. Like I said, if you got any questions throughout the day, DM them to me, and I'll try to answer them. I'll try to answer them on here. All right? Tomorrow at 6, guys.